Welcome back to the second video on this subject. If you were unsure of what is going on, there was a massive leak. It seems somebody in Gaijin had accidentally uploaded a large amount of vehicles to the dev server, the public dev server, not any special internal dev server that I assume they have. This amount of vehicles is so big, it's bigger than just one patch. For that is the reason that probably not every vehicle we're going to see here is going to come in the next patch, but we could probably assume quite a few of them are. So let's talk about the tanks in this video. First, I'm going to start talking about the tank that I care about. Japan, eventually, we can assume, is getting the Type 10. This was found in the dev server before they removed it. This is two things. One, great. Japan definitely needs a new top tier tank. A fast shooting Type 90, despite being really great, still isn't doing it for them at top tier. So something was needed, and it seems Gaijin has settled upon, yeah, we're going to add the Type 10. Type 10 is a tank that came out in 2010. A lot of details about it are unknown. Apparently it shoots laser beams. It is powered by friendship magic, and it uses crystals to protect itself. Some of those are actually true. I've never seen someone confident on the actual performance of this vehicle, besides the obvious ones like its speed and whatnot. Some people like to state that the armor is probably the same as the Type 90, but for gun-wise, I've heard some crazy numbers that it can pen up to the thousands. Beyond that, I have no idea the performance of this tank, and I'm curious to see how Gaijin puts it in the game. That's gonna be an interesting situation. Regardless, we can say that it's probably coming eventually. We can't necessarily say next patch. God knows how long this thing's gonna sit in the files. While I'm sure Gaijin's knowledge of the vehicle is probably greater than mine, I doubt they know a whole lot more. The other tank that was found in the files for Japan was the Type 3 Kachi, which is another Japanese float tank. I don't think this one ever saw any combat. I don't remember the details fully, but what's interesting about this one is it actually does have its floats. If this is a known fact that these tanks did indeed have floats on them, I wonder if we could anticipate the other tank, the Ka-Mi, to get its floats if this thing is to come with its floats on. That would be very interesting. It's also possible, perhaps, just maybe, that this model is primarily being made for enlisted, which could imply that we're going to see some Pacific combat in that game soon. And while we're talking about Axis nations, let's talk about the new German vehicles that were found in the files. First off is the Leopard 1M, which is a Leopard 1, I assume, modernized. I doubt it's a whole lot different than any other Leopard we've seen in the game, and honestly I wouldn't be surprised if this turned out to be an event vehicle, because how is it much different than the M1A1? And I doubt it's going to have performance nearly as good as the Leopard 1L44. It's also possible it could be put into another tree, though I can't really think of who else used Leopards that would end up in the German tree, because he can't really have I guess he could have an Australian Leopard in the German tree. They did it with the Canadian one. The next one I'm actually really interested in. It is the Leopard 2 PT-14, another prototype of the Leopard 2, and I think it might be armed with a 105 gun, but it looks more like a L44. I want to see some of those Leopard 2s with the 105s, but this one anyways is still very interesting. I'm not sure of the armor schematics or anything like that, although you could probably assume it's very small. Probably going to be put right before the Leopard 2K. The next three I know people are going to be very excited for. First off is another Martyr, the Martyr 1A3. Looks to be like the Martyr A1, but different ATGM, probably maybe different gun, no weird turret on the back. After that is the Martyr DF-105, which is a Martyr with a, I'd assume, 105mm gun on a oscillating turret of the AMX-13. That could be pretty fun, though you'd be kind of thick in terms of AMX-13 terms. Though, once again, the AMX-13 turret has found itself onto the another chassis of a vehicle. And finally is the Puma. I don't want to say the full name, it's weird in German, but this thing got leaked a long time ago by the modelers of it. And honestly, I was about to give up hope on it, but now we're seeing it in the files in this leak. I already know people are very excited for this thing. I think it used spike ATGMs or something that had like radar lock. That's some crazy stuff. Now the other vehicles that they got were two more 75mm armed half tracks, one with a short and one with a very long one. But one last tank, which was kind of a weird one, was the Panzerkampfwagen 38NA. From the not so trustworthy sources I can find online, it is a Panzer 38T with a slightly better engine that allows it to get up to 62 kilometers an hour. About 15 were made and it never entered combat. Continuing on with Axis nations, we have Italy, who got a C-1390, which looks like it's got the Obel's 90mm turret on a track chassis, not a wheeled one. Looks alright, I guess. Probably be like 6'3" or something, unless there's some sort of magic sauce that I'm not aware of. But also was found is something that has been there before. It is the Simovente M43 75 Bersaglietti, which is not the first time it's been found in the files. Generally, it's just a Simovente, but with 3 machine guns on top. Hopefully this time around it actually does find its way way into game instead of just being lost in the files again. Italy doesn't really need it, but it would be great to have it. To make this order of operations even weirder, let's talk about some Swedish tanks. First off was the PVKV-3, which seems to be the PVKV-2 with a smaller caliber cannon. Then the PVKV-4, which you might think is an Israeli tank. This one, though, I think is probably going to be a pretty nice vehicle. Apparently, it could shoot APDS with its 57mm cannon. Though, like the other PVKVs, it also had very little armor, the hardest part being the gun mantlet of 20mm. Then they had another STRF 9040, this being the B model. It kind of just looks like the other ones. Unless you guys in the comments know there's something special about it, probably just another IFV with a 40mm cannon. Now, I saved the best for last. Not stat-wise, most interesting is the PBV-301, which, according to Wikipedia, was a typical battle taxi armed with a 20mm Bofors gun. Wikipedia also states that the gun is from a SAB 21, and if that is the case, it should only be able to penetrate about 25mm, so it probably won't be another R3, especially because I doubt it's going to be that fast. There's only 2 tanks found for the United States. That is the T-54E2, which is like the T-54 US one, but it looks like it doesn't have an oscillating turret anymore. I'm pretty sure the gun is the same in the chassis. Well, it's an M60 chassis. Pretty cool prototype tank. I wonder where that would go in the tree. The other one is really weird. It is the XM975 Roland. It is a very small chassis with a Roland turret on it. I don't get why you would put this in the US tree. They already have a proper SAM that works quite well. I guess the more the merrier, but also with SAMs, shouldn't he be like doing research to find ones for other nations? Whatever. It was only a data mine. We don't know if it's actually coming, but it's interesting. And I guess, you know, it wouldn't hurt. What will be part of the United States one day, and yes, that is a threat, the United Kingdom got 2 new vehicles. Well, sort of. One of them was the Sam Roycott, which didn't come in the patch, apparently because it was never actually fully completed. So Gaijin kind of had to scrap it. Although perhaps maybe it'll find its way into game anyways. I don't know anything about the details of this thing, but it would be pretty interesting to have a really fast SAM. But also the Vickers Mark III. Well, it looks like a mixture between a Centurion and a Vickers. Cool, I guess. Looks like it has a 105. For the French, there was a number of vehicles found, including another tractor, the P19T. This one looks like it only has 2 cannons, but of a much larger caliber. Then was the AMX-50 1950. I think it was a pre-production AMX-50, though I don't know if the AMX-50s ever went into service. Generally, the only difference is the turret's slightly different and it has a machine gun. A commander machine gun, that is. There was also a vehicle that has been spotted in the files before, so don't get your hopes up too much, French boys. Now, there was also a ELC BIS found. The ELC series of tanks are probably the most disgusting things I've ever seen, but the BIS variant actually looks okay. Not sure what the gun is, but it's kind of short, probably a low pressure 90 that only shoots heat. Hopefully we do actually see the other ELC variant of tanks. Then War Thunder could be a psychological horror. Actually, I think it already kind of is one. And the final French tank found was the Leclerc SXXI, or I like to call it as the Leclerc Sexy. What is the Leclerc Sexy? I don't know. I read the description in Wikipedia and it sounded like something you'd see in Mass Effect. So let me read it here. At the end of the 1990s, a study was initiated to protect the Leclerc tank against the latest threats. Those threats were represented by ATGMs with tandem-shaped charged warheads capable of penetrating more than 1,000mm of RHA steel, as well as long-rod APFSDS with a length-to-diameter ratio of 1:30, with penetration performance exceeding 700mm of RHA. The technical approach consisted of replacing the passive composite module protecting both sides of the turret muzzle by lighter reactive modules incorporating semi-active layer. This weight-saving allowed the use of titanium in the ballistic protection for the turret frontal arc. Furthermore, this shifted the center of gravity towards the front of the tank, closer to the traverse axis, facilitating the dynamic layer of the turret drive. Block 10 and 11, T10 and T11, Leclerc Sexy tanks are recognizable by their add-on ceramic armor plates bolted to the top of the reactive modules, protecting both sides of the autoloader compartment. So less side armor, more front armor. There's also 2 vehicles for China found in the files. One was the ZTL-11, a wheeled tank destroyer from 2009 armed with a 105mm cannon that could fire a APFSDS round called BTA-2 that could penetrate supposedly 220mm at 6 degrees at 2,000 meters. It could also fire ATGMs that were equivalent to ones equipped on the BMP-3. It would be a great vehicle to see at the end of the Chinese tank destroyer line. Other vehicle found in the files was a great one for them, the ZTZ-99W. Information on the ZTZ-99's variants is kind of hard to come by unless you know Chinese. My assumption is just a ZTZ-99 with different or differently sorted explosive reactive armor. Probably in some way it's a better tank, which is what China needs at the moment. They don't actually have any top tier tanks. And there was one tank for Russia, the Gaz-75. Not a truck, it's like a weird Russian Hetzer looking thing. And that's just about all of them, technically. We'll get to those ones eventually. So what do you think? Any tanks that you're looking forward to? Do you think any of these are not coming anytime soon? Or do you think they're all coming soon? Now before I end the video, first big quick shout out to my Patrons, YouTube members, and Twitch subs. Thank you very much, guys. I'm gonna go straight making another video once this one's out, so be sure to hit that bell icon to be notified when the next video comes up. I'm not sure what it's gonna be on. Maybe the planes? Kinda wanna do the ships next because there's some pretty interesting ones. But like, who plays naval? Anyways, in the terms of bonus news,